Today is December 11th, 2015. First off, thank you. Sorry, 1 second. First off, thank you to everyone who's come to GX3 and also our panel. Really appreciate it. Obviously, this is going to be a fantastic conference, and thank you very much for starting off with us. My name is Zachary Snader. I am the head of growth and development at Dual.
I'm Adam Rickert. I am the senior creative designer at Netmarble.
And this panel, we're going to try to have some smiles, right? Obviously, it's about depression, but we don't want to be super sad in here. This is discussing the issues within, some resolutions we can have for dealing with depression. I'm sure we've all encountered our own experiences in some way or another, partly why we're all here, correct? And I figured I'd start it off with a picture of my mom's dog because she looks like a stuffed animal. That cat looks sad, but it's actually really happy that it's in that cup. And then also, here's a picture of a dog trying to eat a weight, a man eating tomatoes in a really cool fashion, and a panda bear lifting weights. That is the entirety of the slides for our presentation. So, so the rest of it, we'll just be talking here.
It's all downhill from here.
No, but if for any reason you feel that this material is sensitive to you or you need to step out, if we do get into anything too serious, not saying we will, then feel free to step out or just let us know. That's totally fine. So first off, we'd like to discuss the problem, why we're here, right? The games industry and creative industries in general are unique in that we are doing something that we love, something that should be fun, but the work behind it is not always the same as the output, right? And that's how it goes for a lot of industries, but that's especially true in games, creative industries, where a lot of the understanding of the people involved isn't necessarily there. That's part of the reason why GX3 exists, right? And within that, there's all sorts of different personalities, developers, players alike, professionals, non-professionals, and we find ourselves here discussing this problem that has plagued this industry and many others for quite some time. And it's only in recent years that we've begun to understand some things that we can do about it, ways we can solve it. And luckily there's champions within the LGBTQ community and outside of it that have been able to help us see these problems, have them come to light. Unfortunately, those have not come without their own casualties of sorts. So what we'd like to discuss are some things that have happened in regards to how depression has affected certain people within the industry and some ways that we can counter it. So we'll speak to some personal examples. Adam, if you want to go ahead and just discuss some things you've seen from the community and maybe some experiences you've had, then we'll go back and forth on that.
Sure. So my personal story, I've dealt with depression in its myriad forms since I was a teenager, and it has surfaced in many ways throughout my career. And a lot of times it comes about as a saps me of motivation to work on projects, motivation to start new projects. It's been the reason that I've ended up dropping the ball on things that I've done in the past, commitments I've made, and I've found that the main way that I'm affected by it, not everyone is affected by it in the same way, but the main way that I'm affected by it is just kind of a decrease in motivation and energy. So when I'm at the darkest, the one thing that I want to do is just not see anybody and just stay in bed and not leave the house. And I've found over the years that while that feels fine at the moment, it doesn't improve the situation at all. So the improving part is the thing that I've had to focus on to make the long-term situation better. And a lot of it is just learning ways to do self-care, ways to recognize when I'm getting in these patterns of borrowed thought, where I can recognize now when I'm starting to feel down, when I'm starting to feel like, this is a situation where I'm heading into kind of a dark place, and I'm able to kind of at least maybe not halt the process, but at least slow it down a bit and maybe make progress to reverse it if possible.
And on that note, obviously, part of the reason that depression does happen, especially within what we do as players and developers, there's not a lot of money when you are just starting out. Financial problems can obviously create periods of depression or negative thoughts. And then also, sometimes your work does not always speak for itself. Sometimes it doesn't get the recognition you want it to. And a lot of times, especially us as gamers, we tend to have introversive personality traits, right? So we beat ourselves up. We take all of that personally. Even if it was no outside factor, even if, something just went wrong because it did, maybe bad luck, right? We take that and attach it to ourselves.
Well, and those things tend to feed on each other too. Like what you just said is basically, I think every developer, indie, professional, etc., deals with imposter syndrome at some point, and that definitely feeds in largely to feelings like that, like you're not worth, your position, or what you're doing. To give you some background, so. In early 2014, I got a back injury that put me out of commission. I was basically bedridden for about 6 months, and I was unemployed at the time. So job hunting while you're basically bedridden is stressful, to say the least.
BuzzFeed writer.
Oh, totally. And so it was a period where I wasn't able to work on anything due to the injury. Wasn't able to really have any income. So there was a long period of kind of feeling like I wasn't being productive. I wasn't able to make any real progress in any area of my life, and it was really, really frustrating. And so I was working on side projects and trying to take on work if I could, but inevitably it all fed in on itself, where I would take on a side project to try to get to have something going in my life at the time, and I would work on it for a little bit, and then end up feeling like, well, what am I doing? I'm not good enough for this, and get more depressed, and then that would also feed into the injury not getting better. So it's a cyclical thing, because a lot of times your mental state can affect how injuries heal. So yeah, with that scenario, like that's been the last year and a half, 2 years of my life, and it's a very recent kind of thing that I've dealt with. So
yeah, absolutely. And positive reinforcement for yourself and from others is something we'll discuss a little later on as well. And I just want to ask something really quickly here. How many of you rely on games as your primary source of either happiness, income, possibly both, as developers, players, maybe someone in the media? Everyone else, you're just fans of games, you just want to be here, experience GX3 in some degree, I assume. Do you all play games at the very least? Okay. Does anyone here not play games? It's okay, you can raise your hand. Okay, yeah, I don't play games as often as I should, and I work in the games industry. What was I going to say? Right, I know what I was going to say. All right, thank you everyone for being patient. Yeah, for my personal experiences, I've actually almost committed suicide a couple times, and it's really, really difficult to discuss that, especially if any of you have been in that same point to any degree. And a lot of that was due to my work in games, actually. I've worked on games. You put 6 months into it, 8 months into it, 16 to 18 months into it, and you get almost no return for it. I worked for free in games for pretty much up until last year, and that was a 4-year period of working for basically nothing. So I was working 60-hour weeks, 70-hour weeks, 80-hour weeks, if not longer. Had relationships at the time, lost a lot of people because of that, lost a big part of myself, and coping was really, really difficult. It's taken me years and years and years to figure out mechanisms in which we could even figure out, like, how do I understand myself? How do I understand the influence of those around me? How do I understand the outside impacts that are coming into my life? And as Adam was mentioning, there's just so much that's constantly against you. So how do you fight past that? How do you push past that? I think there are some really influential people who have had some of those same experiences that we look up to every day, and we may not even understand everything they've gone through. People like Zoe Quinn, Anita Sarkeesian, right? They've had death threats against them. Even Patrick Klepek, Matt Gilgenbach, Jennifer Hepler, who actually left the industry because harassment against her was just so volatile. she's not the only one. And other people have had much harsher impacts on their life because of those outside influences. So what are some things that we as players, developers, fans, members of the LGBTQ community, what can we do to counteract some of those things? What are we up against exactly? And Adam, if you want to go into that a little bit, then I'll follow up.
Actually, I've got a sort of side question. When you were working the 60 to 70 hours a week, did you have an alternate job, something that brought in money, or was it just that?
It was enough to be able to live at my dad's house.
Because I found that that's one of the main contributing factors to the depression continuing was not having any real control over like financial situations or home life situations. And one of the major things, and I'll talk about this more later, one of the major things that has helped is having a job that brings in income as the primary focus, and realizing like maybe, working on games is great, but just in a totally realistic world, like it doesn't pay the bills as often as we would like it to. So yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And exactly some forces that we do face, right? We briefly discussed that before, but the diffusion of responsibility is something that we face often, especially in this community. And that is where people, it's bandwagoning, essentially, where someone will say something and then negative reinforcement is much easier than positive reinforcement, especially in an environment where people are looking at you, whether you are acting anonymously or not. It's easier to have that hive mind groupthink mentality than it is to stand apart and say no or disagree. And I think the people in here have felt that to some degree. Obviously, we see that online all the time, and I'm sure most of us have an online presence of some sort. And then there's also a lack of understanding. Another reason for GX3 being here is there's still this perception that people in here are different, right? That we can't all be the same, that we can't just be people, we can't just be gamers, can't just be developers. Why, right? Why can't we be those people? Why can't we all just be people? And because there's that lack of understanding, we feel that's another force against us. And whether we're actively thinking about it or not, our minds are recognizing that and understanding that. And that's just another force for us to push back against.
So with regards to that, one thing that I've noticed just over the years is that when it comes to social networks, especially like Facebook, nobody likes a sad sack. Just it is not a good look on people. Mm-hmm. And so if you're consistently down and vocal about it, it's easy to get dismissed as a result. One thing that I had to fight against a lot was, my kind of natural mental state was negative for a long time, and it was because I just didn't have a lot of things to lift it up in my day-to-day life. I tend to look at life as having like, three major pillars holding it up. It's like if you've got a good job, if you've got a stable living situation, and if you have like a stable relationship, those are like the three pegs holding up the stool. And for the longest time, like the only thing I had going for me was just I had a rent controlled apartment. And I'm like, can't lose this. If I lose this, everything's done. And it's funny because the exodus, especially from San Francisco in the last year or two, just of people getting displaced due to rent issues, has really brought that specific issue to light, to realize like, wow, okay, I'm really lucky to have this one really strong pillar. And so for me, the kind of the solution there was to realize when enough people had kind of said like, look, you're kind of a downer to hang around with. I'm like, I know, and I'm trying to work on it. Like, I don't know what to do about this. Like, I don't want to just be a hermit all the time because that doesn't help, but I also don't want to be a downer around everybody because that doesn't help them, and like nobody wants to hang around you. So it's as much a process of realizing that a lot of the work is internal, a lot of it's self-care, and your support network is, when they're there, they're great, but you can't always rely on having a really solid support group unless there are people like significant other or family that are that have been there before or plan on being around for a while. But it's difficult trying to figure out who's going to be your support network when you're in the middle of needing one. Like it's difficult to put together a support group after the fact.
Right, absolutely. And a lot of it comes down to how we see ourselves. I was listening to a podcast recently. It's called School of Greatness. I'd recommend it for anyone out there. And one of the people that was on the show, the quote was, "I can't help anyone before I help myself, because if I do so, then I'm not at my happiest," right? You need to ensure that you have your happiness before you can do so for others. And in turn, you actually will be able to create that network. Like, yes, you will be able to find people that can help you, whether you know them or not. There's tons of resources out there. We'll go over that later. But you need to understand, and this is going to be true whether you like it or not, is that we have to make ourselves happy. We have to. We are the only ones that will be able to ensure that we are at our happiest. And that's what it ultimately comes down to. Like my partner and I, no matter what she does for me, no matter what I do for her, it doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, I'm responsible for how I feel. It takes a really long time to be able to say those things, to create that positive reinforcement for yourself. And there's a number of ways you can do that. As Adam mentioned, when you're a downer, that kind of feeds into itself, right? So do the opposite. I would like to be positive. Ask yourself, how can I be positive today? Tell yourself positive things about you. We're all great people in here. We all have amazing qualities. Why is my hair so awesome? Because it's green. Answer that question for yourself. What is a cool thing I did today?
So I found that to be particularly the most difficult part to do.
Your hair being green?
Well, that too. Okay. No, actually, the finding positive things. That kind of approach I don't feel like really works for me. Mm-hmm. But what I found was that by doing other things that made me happy, I started seeing things more positively versus trying to force myself to see things positively when I knew that it's like, I'm in the middle of the shit. Like, I'm in the middle of this stewing pile of crap, and what do I do with it? Mm-hmm. Rather than focusing on what the reality of the situation was, it's more about focusing on little things like, okay, I'm feeling, I haven't gotten out of bed today, and I'm feeling really shitty, so I should, at the very minimum, like, take a shower, eat breakfast, maybe try and go for a walk, just like real minor baby steps. And I find that almost every time those things help me a lot more than trying to force a mindset to happen, because those things are real active things that I'm doing. It's the difference between willing something to happen and actually going out and doing it. And I find that the going out and doing it is substantially more influential in changing the situation.
Yeah, that's actually a great point. Obviously, we all experience negative things, depression, differently. And I've actually never been able to do that. I've never been able to just go out and do it. I've had to tell myself, I can do this thing, and then I will go out and do that thing. I've never just literally gone out, did it, and then said, oh, hey, I just did something awesome. That was really cool.
And that's how depression does affect people differently. Like, I find for me, motivation is the thing that gets hurt the most when I'm really depressed. And so as a result, the immediate action I can take is to do something that requires motivation. So it may not be doing the thing that I need to do. I usually call it productive procrastination, where, to be like, oh, I really need to work on this term paper, but it'd be really great if I just cleaned up the whole house for 12 hours. I find that even though I'll still feel bad about not working on the thing that really needs the work, but at least I have like a bit more sense of accomplishment, and I feel like I've at least been somewhat productive, and it's easier to keep motivation going to do other things once I've started to get the ball rolling. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And on that note, as I mentioned before with the peer networks, there are people who have that like mindset. I'm sure you have friends that have gone through similar things before. I certainly have. Even if you don't know those people, they are out there. They're very likely in this room or at this conference, and you can always find someone. And if you've had an experience like that has possibly changed your life for better or worse, then you'll be able to find someone who can support you moving forward, who can discuss these things. I like the rave lights going on in the back, by the way. No, it's totally fine. It's totally fine. And I think for me, because I've been a jock. I was in a fraternity, believe it or not. It was really stupid. Don't do it. I was still a total introvert the whole time, and I'd sit in my room while people were partying outside, and I'd play video games. I played Portal 2 by myself, which is
that sounds amazing. What kind of frat is that?
Yeah, well, it was just me. It was just me. And actually, I got this Vault Boy tattoo here. Fallout, believe it or not, got me through a lot of just the negativity that I found in myself. Because if any of you play Fallout, there's a community called the Nexus. And I was on that chat all the time. I'd hang out with people. I mean, I've been playing StarCraft since I was 10, so I know how to talk to people online. And those people helped me find new ways to engage my creativity in the game, outside of it. It helped me develop my skills in community management. And honestly, it's the only reason that I'm sitting in front of you today. So there's always a way to find someone that can understand what you're going through. Again, they're more than likely here. And that's someone that you can add to that support network. As we develop in our careers as well, there are people that we can have as mentors. Personally, I've developed a mentorship network. I'm actually staying with one of my mentors while I'm here on this trip, and I think that's one of the coolest things in the world, that I can call on these people and they will support me at any time, even though we've met 3 times, 4 times, maybe even once. I don't know if you have anything like that, especially within this community, but
not at all.
Okay. And that speaks to all of us having our different experiences with depression, right? Like, that's not necessarily a bad thing, because you found your ways to counteract these things.
So you've got Fallout. Minecraft was my game.
Okay.
And the reason behind that was I loved playing Minecraft to begin with, but I started playing on some specifically gay servers. And mind you, I hate multiplayer games with a passion. I think playing with other humans is like the worst way to spend my time. Right? Like, not to put it too bluntly, but like, people that play games online can kind of be assholes.
Look, some people suck, right?
Some people suck.
It's true.
And so I tend to stay away from most multiplayer games just because I don't like the community around it. I may love the game and I may love how it plays in multiplayer, but I just hate the type of community that they breed. So when I found Minecraft, I did see an element of kind of the more gross side, but what I did find is that on specifically queer servers, that there was a much more collaborative type of play that I really enjoyed. It was a type of play that I had really been longing for, and so it made playing the game more engaging, more substantial to me, because I knew that it was working towards something in game that would have taken me longer to work for myself. Like, for example, we decided to build a town together, and so every time I'd log in, there'd be like something new built that I hadn't seen before or hadn't had anything to do with, and we would have events on the server and play pranks on each other. And so my job was I would go around town and build like little secret puzzles and stuff, and so I would hide treasure there and then give them something that they had to figure out their way through, like a maze or some kind of redstone lock trap, something that once they get to the end of it, it may not be a lot of reward. It might only be like a diamond or a suit of armor or something, but the idea is more to be like finding Easter eggs that you didn't have anything to do with. So you log in, you're like, oh, there's this new thing, and this is awesome. It extends the playtime.
Well, I was about to say that's why you never play games with game designers, but
if that was the case, I could never play games.
No, but that's great that you found that community. I know in Phoenix, well, I'm from Phoenix. Right, I probably should have mentioned that. Right, so I'm in Phoenix, and we actually have a Phoenix Gamers, GaymerX community, and it's awesome because we have community playdates, and it's not just Minecraft, but we'll actually get together, especially if you hate people on the internet, Adam, then I'm just kidding. But if you don't like playing with people online, or if you want to play with people who are like-minded, even if it is in the same physical space, then there are those people, there are those resources. I created a compilation of resources, and I made a post for it. I'll link it at the end. But there are definitely ways. So just search around, ask around. Don't be afraid, and most importantly, don't be afraid of yourself. Obviously, we've all accepted who we are to some degree, and that's part of why we're here. But there's always that fear. There's always that, how do I be the best version of me, that we have in the back of our minds. And the biggest thing is just not to be afraid to tackle that. Don't be afraid to tackle those questions. Don't let yourself continue to take that spiral and let yourself get out of your own control, because at that point, it's really difficult to come back. And I've been there. I'm sure some of us have. And it takes a lot more to come back from that than it does to try to give yourself that reinforcement, or at least go out and find it, or do the things that you want to do, as Adam has done. And we're here today, we're smiling, right? On my LinkedIn profile, it says, I'm the happiest person on earth. That's not always true, right? Like, we all go through our peaks and valleys.
There's an asterisk after that says some restrictions apply.
Conditions and terms applicable here.
Exactly.
No, but we all go through those peaks and valleys. People all the way up to some of the most successful entrepreneurs in history have hit those periods. And a lot of it's because they do some of the things we do, like work long hours, or part of a community that might not understand them. But at the very least, I give myself that goal. And for me, that's what works. For other people, it might just be going to the grocery store, or saying hi to a friend, calling your family, trying to reconcile an old relationship, something along those lines. So again, we'll link those resources. Is there anything else you wanted to touch on before we open it up?
Yeah, why don't we talk about self-care for a bit?
Okay.
Because I feel like that's the primary thing that people have the most problem finding out how to do or deal with. I mean, everybody that's had depression knows all about the ups and downs. That part we don't have to rehash, because if you're living it, you know exactly what it is. But on terms of self-care and like things you can do to help yourself get out of these peaks and valleys, I'll give some background of my situation is so. Like I said, I had a back injury that put me out of commission for a while. During that time, I had 2 major relationships end in my life. It was just this series of 2014 is like just a toss away year. Like the whole year just was garbage. Like I could just pluck it out of the calendar, throw it away, because nothing good happened. And I basically at the end of the year kind of came to this conclusion with myself. I'm like, this has sucked for so long, and I can't keep going on with this. So what can I do to change this? And the upside to it was I started a new job at the end of February. I'm still there. It's been going great. It's with a large company. I'm doing something that I love doing. I just finished a business trip to South Korea. Just doing all these like neat, interesting things on games that are games that I would actually play, because I've worked for companies before that are small startups that their games are just not fun, and they're clearly cash grabs, and they just kill me inside. So to work.
Sorry.
we all have to do things we don't care to talk about to pay the bills. So but yeah, so I mean, we've all worked for these kind of companies, because that's the reality of working in the games industry is, sometimes you have to do things that you're not particularly proud of to pay the bills and put food on the table. And so to kind of have that all come full circle and be working for a place now where I enjoy the type of work I do, I really don't have any complaints day to day, and that's been like, I can't remember a time when that has happened before. So on the work front, it was really nice to kind of make that the primary focus this year, was like really getting my kind of work and financial house in order, because the apartment's still there. That's been the one pillar I've had so far, and I knew that the relationship thing I needed to take a break from and really focus on like getting all my ducks in order. So on the relationship side, something that I did that I it was kind of an experiment to see how it would work. I'm doing what I'm terming a gay-free year. And I deleted all my hookup apps. I stopped going out to happy hours. Like, I made a point of really not engaging in all of the gay drama and gay bullshit that normally goes on from day to day. And honestly, it's been probably one of the happiest years I've had in a long time. And it's been largely because I've removed myself from kind of the environment that breeds a lot of the narcissism and self-centeredness and like all the really ugly gay traits that we find in like big city gay life. And I still have friends. I still go out. I go and see movies with friends, but I focused more on doing things that make me happy or that I enjoy doing. So if I go to a movie, it's with people that I want to go out with, not as an obligation to go out with like a group of gay people. Or if somebody's having an event on the weekend, some dance party or something, I have many times made an active choice to be like, no, I know I'm not going to have any fun there. I'm going to stay home and play Minecraft. And I've had way more fun nights just chilling at home, being like, oh, I just built a 15-story castle, blah blah blah, and like those kind of things I found have been way more helpful in improving overall mood and ability to kind of brush things off than anything else. And also, on kind of another note that we haven't touched on yet is, antidepressants are kind of awesome too. Like, you can't necessarily knock them for what they're worth as well. So it's kind of a combination approach. You want to attack it from as many strong points as you have. So if you're in a situation where your work situation is really unhealthy, or you're working long hours and you don't enjoy the job, focus on trying to either make improvements within your workplace or focus on finding a type of job that makes you fulfilled. And another part of that was, so I've done indie game development for many years, and this year was really the first year where I've been focusing on my day job so extensively that I haven't really had a lot of time to work on my side projects, and I'm okay with that. I've kind of come to the conclusion that like having a really casual development cycle for my indie projects is as healthy as I need to be. If my day job, if the thing that I'm doing to pay the bills is fulfilling, like that's a bonus that most people don't have. If I have a day job that I like going to, that's already a win, and being able to do indie development on the side is like just a nice bonus. It's like a nice extra thing I get to do. So.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, is we have control over a lot of things that we might not think we do. Like Adam was discussing how he was bedridden for 6 months with a back injury, right? And now he's doing something he enjoys. We can't all get there. The approach that Adam discussed may not be the best one for you, and that's okay. It's just a possible solution. But you have the opportunity to figure out what does work best. Maybe you could try a combination of things. I don't know about a gay-free year. You could do that if you want to. Or antidepressants.
I'm just saying, it's kind of awesome.
But yeah, you have the opportunity to do those things. And there are so many things within our control. The way we sleep, the way we eat, the way we exercise, the way that we find out how to make ourselves happy. We have full control over that. We really do. And I think we have 10 minutes left. Is that correct? Okay. Would it be okay to open it up? Yeah. All right. So we'd like to open it up to questions. I actually wanted to pose one. I wanted to pose a really serious one. If anyone wants to answer, that's okay. If not, totally understandable. I wanted to see what the lowest point you've ever encountered as part of the queer games community, why, and then if you came back from it, how, and if you've not fully recovered, what do you believe it would take to do so? If anyone wants to answer, cool. Again, if not, totally fine. I'll just leave it open for like 30 seconds. Yeah, go ahead. And what's your name, by the way?
I'm Cameron.
Okay.
I would say the lowest point was when last year when myself and all of my friends were giving gaslighting and talks as part of the Game of the 8 fiasco.
Yeah,
I did not get hit nearly as bad, of course, as my developer friends who are more active in the industry than I am. So it was actually, it was me witnessing this horrible event, and by proxy being a part, being involved in it, but still having to be a supportive system for all of my other friends who were doing things even harder, and having to sort of anchor myself while carrying all of these other people in a supportive role.
Yeah. If you're going to get doxxed, you might as well get doxxed together, right? No, that is really great that, it's terrible that happened to you, but that you and your friends were able to, work with each other and be there for each other when something as terrible as that happens. That is really great. Is there anyone else that wants to speak to that? If not, then we'd be happy to open it up to questions, possibly experiences, maybe things that you believe you could do if you want to talk about those in an open environment. Obviously, there's no judgment here, so we leave it completely open to you. Go ahead. What's your name?
I'm Terry.
Terry? Okay.
So this might be a little triggering for some people with regards to suicide, but I noticed that you said that you had made suicide attempts earlier.
I hadn't made attempts, but I'd seriously thought of it. Like I was about to.
Long-term ideation.
Yeah, it was a long-term ideation that almost came to fruition.
Yeah. So I struggle with the same thing. I have real difficulty with ideation. It just is very. It sounds a little cliche at this point, but it very much is a spiral. The more you think about it, the more you want to think about it, and the more it sort of materializes into actual plans. If you look at things like train tracks or ropes or things like that.
You get real inventive when you start thinking about that too.
Yeah.
Your mind becomes very laser focused on how can I do this? And the more you do it, the more difficult it is. I was actually hospitalized in the psychiatric unit earlier this year after an attempt. And I did it voluntarily. It was in a state where they don't have something like where they involuntarily do you, but I was just I know I need this because my personal reason for wanting to do so, or stopping at the time, was kind of who are the people I'm going to hurt and how is this going to affect them? I need to do this for them. And so I was committed to a psychiatric program, and the first few days I was still suffering a lot, so I was kind of out. They gave me a lot of sedatives and stuff like that. But as I was in a setting that was really supportive and had a lot of group therapy and stuff like that from people suffering from the same things, it really brought into perspective how these other people's actions affected their families and their different ages. You were all ages in this program, so who you would affect really varies age to age, time to time. But I did get a lot better, and I was able to get the help I needed. I was able to get the medicine I needed, which really helped as well. So that was kind of how I brought myself back from a really low point. And I'm still, I still struggle a lot with ideation and stuff like that. But at this point, I can actually kind of I realize what I'm doing when I'm ideating, or what I'm doing when I'm feeling depressed and you have the temptation to just stay in bed all day or whatever.
So for me, when I was at that point, obviously I didn't act on it, but I got very close. And first off, I'd like to say I think we're all happy that you're here. I want to speak for everyone in saying that, so it's great to see you here. For me, what I did, I just tried to create as many positive images as I possibly could and just put those at the forefront of my mind. I mean, I've gotten to the point where I had a knife in my hand and I just thought, all right, here's my mom, here's my brothers, here's my dog, here's my family, here's my friends. I was in someone else's home at the time too, and I just okay, I just can't do this, right? And personally for me, another way that I'm going to do that, I'm going to meet every single person here at some point during the show. I am. You guys should definitely come up and talk to me at some point because I want to meet all of you, because that's 50, 46, however many people are in here, more reasons that I have not to do a thing like that, not to even think about it. And I can put those at the front of my mind prior to even going down and down and down and down and thinking about those things. That might work for me, it might not work for you, but I just think it's a suggestion that maybe, that might work out for you, because you did say you had that support group. Everyone else in here is part of that support group now, whether they know it or not. You're in the support group. You signed up for it. But no, seriously, like everyone is here for you. The people in your life, just keep them there, right? They will be there for you. If not, you will find someone who will be, at the very least. Oh, yeah, okay, that's awesome. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Alex. One thing that when I suffer from depression various times of my life, and my biggest problem is motivation, but also self-sabotage. Like if you're just, okay, I need to do this, fine, procrastinating, but at the same time, I'm not gonna do it, and I know that that's gonna hurt me, and it's gonna make me even more depressed, but I still don't find a way. It's hard to find a way to just fight against yourself, basically.
No, we are our own worst enemies, right? The worst part about that is that we always will be. So that's why there's no one clear solution to dealing with how that works for you. Another thing I did, I would take all of the negative things in my mind, I'd try to put them in a block. I would literally visualize, here's a negative thing. I have credit card debt. Okay, goes in this safe. I have people who are mad at me. It goes in here. I literally drop it in the ocean, and it sits at the bottom of the ocean. And I don't destroy it because it's really difficult to. For me, it's impossible. I know it's there. I recognize it, but I see all of these things that I didn't put in the safe. Today, I'm alive. Today, I was able to walk. Today, I can move my hands. I can see. I can breathe. I can feel. All of these things, as I was mentioning before, I try to create. It's this cloud of amazingness. And that's why I try to put happiest person on earth in there. It's like, maybe it's not true, but I don't give a damn if it is, right? Because I believe it. And I think getting yourself to believe in yourself rather than believing in the negative part of that is a very strong way to at least start on that path towards being someone that's not your own worst enemy. Towards being someone that's your best friend.
You'd be surprised how just being able to walk is such a big thing.
Yeah.
After the first time I was able to get up and actually make it a couple blocks out of the house after my injury was weird. It was such a surreal moment where I was like, because for the longest time I'm like, I don't know if this is going to heal. I don't know if this is going to go away. I'm going to be a vegetable for ever. Like, what's this going to end up like? And so just small things like that are extremely powerful. And it's not something I would have been able to recognize that it was something to be grateful for had it not already been taken away. But with regards to your question, one thing that I find that's really helps me a lot is I'm very task list oriented. So it's really good for me to, if I have a bunch of stuff I need to do, I will write it all down on a list, and just being able to check things off, even if they're small things like, oh, I went and got the mail, yay, I get to check something off. Like, just to have the ability to see visual progress is, for me, it's very powerful. It may not work for everybody, but especially with big projects, what I end up doing is I'll be like, oh yeah, I have this paper to write, but the dishes need doing, and I've got some laundry, and I'll do those other things. And at least I know even if I'm procrastinating on the other thing, I'm still doing something. I'm still being productive in some form, and I find that's really powerful. The guilt's not going to go away. You're not going to feel bad, or you're not going to stop feeling bad about not doing the thing until it's done. That's just a fact. But at least if you can feel better about other things, it will help to even that weight out, even that scale.
Yeah. Okay, we can't take one more.
You take one more.
Okay. All right. Can we take? Okay. Go ahead. What's your name?
Jesse.
All right.
A lot of what you guys are talking about sounds a lot of control methods that you've done to help improve your own situations. So I just kind of wanted to know, because there's oftentimes a misconception about depression, when people who are, quote unquote, maybe not depressed or not feeling depressed, or even clinically depressed, will often maybe shrug off or blow off people who say they are depressed as oh, well, just feel better. Why can't you just make yourself feel better? Or here's some things you can do, go do these things. So what is your actual opinion about, in regards to depression, what is in control? What is in your control of somebody with depression versus what is not?
So that's kind of interesting because it hits at the heart of what we've been talking about. I personally think a lot of positive mental thinking doesn't do anything for me. That's something that I feel is largely outside of my control. Zach, on the other hand, finds that's super helpful for him. That's his method that works for him. So I guess it depends on like how your depression manifests, what the things that it impacts the most. For me, it's getting things done. So those things I know are under my control. You know, doing errands around the house. I know those are physically things that I have control of. And so if I'm depressed, I still understand that those are things that I can do that will make the situation better. I may not be able to make suicidal ideation go away. I may not be able to make whatever events cause the depression to go away, or whatever events are triggering it. But the things I can do are, for example, like I started seeing a psychiatrist. I, decided to start on some psychiatric meds, and I found that even small stuff like that, I was leery about for the long time. And when I finally started doing it, I'm like, wow, this is life changing. Like just the shift in mental perspective of not having that constant like negative drag. If your personality is like here, but it's constantly depressed to here, and you're just living, and that's like your baseline, it's hard to see that it isn't that's depressed. That becomes the new normal. The things that I look at for control are the things that I know that I physically have control over, versus any kind of, I know I'm not going to have control over the circumstances of why I'm depressed. I'm not going to have control over necessarily things that might trigger it. But I do have control over getting myself out of those kind of situations largely. And I do have control over finding ways to even out the scorecard in terms of doing things that make me feel better, or things that will alleviate the situations that cause that.
I would love to answer that. Unfortunately, we do have to wrap up. There is a resource guide if you want to see a collection of articles, maybe some games that actually tackle these ideas. If you just go to medium.com/happiest, that's my Medium page. You don't have to follow me or do any of that stuff. It's just, if that resource guide works for you, I'm going to continue to update it. So it's medium.com/happy or /@happiest. So yeah. Thank you all very much for your time. Seriously, I'm trying to put a picture of my dog on here again so we can end it on a happy note, but it doesn't appear to be working. Either way, thank you again, everyone, and have an awesome GX3.